there was two parts to the dream, and both parts had something to do with like finances or money. I lost the first half of the dream, but basically this message is saying that I was in like a home with my family. I have a big family, so we were kind of like huddled together in a way, like all living with each other, like all of us. And there was a specific uncle that was in charge, or kind of like, there was something about food. Like there was an importance around going to the grocery store and getting more food. And the spirit behind like the whole situation was like we were running out of food, or like we were starving and didn't have any. And so the uncle was very adamant on going to the store, like almost like I'm like antsy. And so he went to the store and he came back with beer. And so kind of the spirit behind that situation was that he wasn't supposed to get beer. It was almost like a no, like initially I thought maybe he was an alcoholic, so there is this issue around him getting beer. He also got food, but there was an issue around him getting beer. There was like a 6-pack, like a pack of individual beers, and then one large beer, kind of like a 40 or something, like an individual beer. And there was an issue about him doing that, and that was the end of that portion of the dream. So after everything unfolded with the bombings and all the stuff that's going on, it was brought back to my attention to reread what I had sent myself. I know there's a lot of like errors as far, because I send the text as a voice message and it doesn't translate all the way, so excuse kind of the things that don't make sense. But when I sat and I reread this, especially with the research that I did with what's going on and what could occur in wars and things, if we were to go to war, food would increase, gas would increase, all of these things would increase. So putting this dream into context as if food and things were, of high demand or very expensive, it would make sense why, the family, or he was looked down on by getting, a pack of beer and a beer for himself, given the situation, whether, food is expensive. So I'm assuming, beer would also be expensive, spending on unnecessary things when we should be prioritizing, our survival or the family or necessities. So the message behind that is, when it comes to, a situation where we have to like ration, or like there's a family dynamic, be sure not to be selfish and to, buy things that would otherwise put the family back. Prioritize spending money on, things that you would need, things that the family needs, like food and things like that. Or this could be a warning to pray against selfishness when it comes to a situation where you guys have to come together and feed each other or feed the family. Do not make, outrageous purchases for yourself, because you will be looked down on. So the dream did end up transitioning into me and 2 other family members going outside of the house where all the family members were staying. We walked outside, and what I noticed is that it was kind of just like vacant, like as if we were like there. I didn't see neighbors or anything, like no life. It was kind of just like a hot day outside. That's one of the things that I've noticed. But when we walked outside, we were told that we could not go anywhere because there was something going on with like the solar system or something like that. And mind you, this is all prior to anything that's going on with like the bombings and all that stuff. So we were told that we could not leave or go to wherever it is that we were trying to go because there was something going on with the solar system. There was like a brief conversation, like as a group, talking about something just outside of, just like casual conversation. And what I noticed when I looked up, the sun was blocked by another light. So it was kind of like an eclipse, but in the reverse. Like there was an eclipse or something blocking the sun, but it was almost like the way that I perceived it in the dream was another sun in front of our sun. It was something bright. It was something shiny. Just like how it says in the messages, there was something that almost resembled like maybe an asteroid. Like I couldn't make out what that shiny thing was. So, just going back to, the dream and putting it in context of what's going on, it might have been, a missile. It might have been something that maybe is going on in another country, or, just what's going on, with Iran and Israel. But relating to the purpose of sharing this message with everybody else is, if this is in context to, the United States or, neighboring countries that might be under attack, there might be restrictions on traveling. We might be told not to go outside, not to go anywhere because, there's, things quote unquote going on with the solar system, meaning like active war, active things that can fall out of the sky or whatever. So that's what I perceived when I reread these messages that I got from last Thursday. So the dream did transition into me. I'm still at the house, but I was like in the garage, and the garage was full of all these things. And I remember it kind of like looking like a yard sale or like a garage sale or something like that. It was in the dream, it was obviously my family's house, but somehow it transitioned into me in a garage wanting to buy something, and I was next to a man that I wasn't familiar with. I didn't know who this person was. And so I remember that once I saw this small ukulele type thing, I walked up to it, and I remember just being so excited finding this thing. And so the guy that was next to me, I wanted to play a song for him. And even though like in the waking life, I don't know how to play, just a straight up song right off the bat, but in this dream, my spirit knew that I could play this from the heart, if that makes sense. So I, grabbed it and I played like this beautiful tune twice. Like I made like a tone. I did like one specific note, but I did it twice, and it was like perfect, beautiful. And, it made the guy happy, and it made me happy because I don't know, it was like a honor to play or something like that. And so I told him that I wanted it, and I remember being quoted like a very cheap price. It was like 35 cents or something like that. And I remember only having like 75 cents on me or something like that. And so then the dream transition from me having this ukulele, and I was being walked to, or I had walked to a cash register. So it was just a regular cash register, like if you were in like Fry's or Walmart or something like that. So I rang up my ukulele, and mind you, I only had like 75 cents in my pocket. And so what I noticed when I looked at the coin slot, this is where dreams kind of get kind of like weird, which we all know that they can. When I went to put my quarter in the slot for the coins, it was wide enough to where I can see other money inside of the slot machine. So for example, if I'm putting my quarter in, it was still wide enough for me to see like quarters laying around, and like I could see other money inside of this thing, even though I'm trying to put my money in. And so it was almost like I had to force and push my quarter through, like give it like a little thrust for it to roll in and for the machine to take my money, because it was just so much things like laying around, right? And so I pushed my quarter in, and I had so far had only put 50 cents in. And so after I pushed the 50 cents in, money started rolling out. So it was like first coins and quarters and things like that, and then the next thing that happened, it was like 20s and fives and hundreds and things. It was to the point where I could literally grab like a hand stack full of money with my hand, and it kept going. And so while I'm grabbing, money, I kind of like felt uncomfortable. And so I only grabbed enough to where I could just, buy some groceries. And so I believe I went and grabbed some groceries, and I came back. But what happened was, instead of like wringing out the groceries, I was just putting the groceries in the basket, because in my head I have money, so I don't have to wring this out. And so when I was there doing that, the lady, you know how there's like a cashier's person kind of watching you, making sure that you're not stealing and things like that. She said, you're in trouble, and don't think that And I was fixing my mouth to apologize, and she was like, you can't apologize at this point, it's already too late. And so in my heart, I was like, I'm about to get up out of here. I said, I'm about to go to my car real fast. But in my mind, I already knew that I was going to try to make a run for it. And so I don't know if I forget if she told me or if I just got convicted. But in the dream, I was like, I took accountability for what I did, because number one, you can't just take it, regardless if if it was a glitch from the store or whatever, you can't just take, money and things that do not belong to you, regardless of, whatever the situation was. And so, after that had happened, I had walked over to like the little room. You know how like when you pass by the room where thieves go until the police get there? Like I was in that room, and there's probably like 4 or 5 other people that got, caught up in, trying to steal and things like that. And the room was unlocked. It wasn't like concealed or anything. People were just kind of lingering, but me, I had access to like walk in and out. And I specifically remember like this area right outside of the door, with like a little, like a specific sitting area where I sat like crisscross applesauce, and kind of just waited and stood back up and went back in the room and then sat down again by that area. So, yeah, I was just sitting there, I guess, waiting, and then that's when the dream had ended. So let me show you guys something, because I really sat here and I prayed on just what the first portion might have meant. Numbers are always meaningful in my dreams. And the way that I assess number meanings is looking up the Strong's Concordance definition of them. Mind you, in the beginning of that dream, I only had 75 cents. 75 cents. That's struggling, especially with the fact, going back to the first half of this dream, where, there's a lack of food, there's a lack of, us being able to feed ourselves, where, we're getting mad at the uncle for getting beer and things. So 75 cents represents that, there's a struggle or there's a lack of something. Then I walk around the garage and I find this ukulele, which is something that brings me excitement, joy. It's something that desire, right? So this was another thing of the 35 cents, the cost that it would be to obtain this ukulele, where I played and I got happy and I was excited and I was willing to pay for this specific thing. Then when I went into the register, I put in 50 cents into the slot to purchase this thing. Mind you, I had 75 cents, but I put in 50 cents before I got a return. Now, I received this dream last Thursday, but right now, today is Wednesday. I believe it's the 25th or the 26th. So I'm looking up the numbers of this right now, and it directly aligns with how the dream went in that first portion. 50 had gave me that Hebrew name Abishua, means my father is rescue. So the way that I perceive that 50 cents that I put into the slot, that I kind of had to push through in the slot, that's when there was just this influx in money and things that started pouring out of the register. After trying to pay for the ukulele, it was like a glitch where money came out of it. So there's a few messages that I'm getting pertaining to that. So the first message that I get once I get the ukulele, I pay, and there's, the situation at the register. So when I went in initially to, the garage sale, there was something that caught my eye that I was willing to pay for. I went to the register, I put 50 cents. That's more than the cost of what it was. So I should have received a return. Instead of receiving the, return that I was supposed to get, I got more than what's expected. That in its own is a word. Take it as you will, take it however, remember, always pray on words that you get. Don't just forcefully think, oh, I'm about to get blessed or anything like that, because there is a negative and a downside to this. yes, I received a return, but it was completely more than what I anticipated, and I was still willing to put another quarter in. Mind you, I had 75 cents. In the dream, I wasn't doing math. I was going to put everything that I had in my pocket in this machine to get this ukulele. And remember, the 35, I believe, represented something that I desired, right? So I was willing to go bankrupt. Obviously, there's 75 cents in my pocket, and remember, 75 in the Strong's Concordance meant to struggle. So I was willing to struggle in order to get the thing that I desired, and in return, I got, more than what I was supposed to get. So, in a spiritual sense, that would have been a blessing. But on the downside, in a realistic situation, I also perceive that obviously it was an issue. So if you were to put something in a machine and more money comes out, that is still considered theft, which is what the case was in the dream. So there could be some kind of blessing or something coming, or something that's wrapped up as a quote unquote blessing, that can, in turn get you in trouble to where you can be judged, being in a waiting room with other thieves and kind of just waiting for judgment in that aspect. So number one, pray against taking something that, hasn't been rightfully given to you. If there is something where it's like a huge influx in what you're actually supposed to get, pray on it and be sure that it's from God, because it could be a trick of the enemy to get you caught up and set you back way more than what the return should have been for you. You were still supposed to get something back, but since you got a lot more than what you anticipated, just pray over it and make sure that this is from God versus a trick from the enemy to set you back. But yeah, so that's about it. I hope that everything came through smoothly for you guys to understand, but that's about the gist of it. And it does tie into, if we were to go to war, if things were to increase in things, there will be possibly an influx in theft. There'll probably be an influx in, fraud. There'll probably be an influx in, people getting caught up in things where, they're in a waiting room or something, waiting for judgment, and to not do that. So just pray against the things that you lack, and you will be blessed by God versus, even though in the dream, this kind of was out of my hands, it was something that was thrown upon me, or just, perfect place. What's the word? Right place, right time, and there was a need for it. And there was a decision that needed to be made. Either you get your change and give it back, everything that came out back to the store, or you take what you can for survival or for whatever, even though you know that it's wrong. So yeah, that's what I got. And yeah, like, share, and subscribe, and you guys have a good day.